parse out.
Get
Jetting
that
down the rabbit hole,
All right,
grabbing for a
cool.
carrot, man.
I swear it's not that big.
Good way to start it off.
But no, I mean, I think that we've been talking for about a good solid 10 minutes. Getting to
About a good 3 hours easily.
well, my setup was about 3. It was 2 hours and 50 minutes, and we talked for about 10 minutes, right? So
That was the worst.
yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm not in my typical room. I got kicked out of my room by my daughter, so I'm down here in the other room, and I had to set up real quick. But I'm kind of liking the setup a little bit. It's a little tight, but it's not too bad. But yeah, I just wanted to really just kind of thank Eddie for jumping on this call and being able to discuss with us. I think he's got some really wild opinions, probably about, the topic today is, are our lives predestined? So I feel like it's going to be a really good one. What do you think, Ian?
Oh, easily. I have a feeling that myself and Eddie are going to have a great conversation while you try to figure it out and just probably mess it up.
Yeah.
But hey, good luck, bud.
Hopefully my green screen stays up, right?
Yeah. Hopefully you have the right mic selected too.
Yeah, well, I have to double check that. Thank you. But
Absolutely.
Eddie, thank you. Welcome to our little podcast. I just want to give you a second to be able to go and introduce yourself if you can.
Sure. Well, hi, everyone. Yes, everyone being the one listening in Russia, I guess.
What's that one?
My name is Eddie Reyes. I am currently an instructor and success coach at a community college here in North Carolina. And I grew up in California, moved around a bit, lived in Texas, have lived in Wisconsin, and then now I can say I've lived in North Carolina. What else?
That's quite the amount of travel that you've done. It seems like it's mostly on the East Coast. Why do you lean towards the East Coast, Eddie?
Not necessarily, but I just think, realistically, the West Coast is really expensive.
Mhm.
I would love to live in, I don't know, Oregon, Washington, California, but it's expensive.
Oh, so you do want to come back to California, huh?
I've thought about it, but yeah.
What part of California would you move
You're
to?
talking-
All right.
What
I
was
said,
that?
what part would you move to if you can move to California?
Again, I like Orange County. That's home. It's always going to be home. That or San Diego, funny enough. Those are kind of the two areas that I really, really, really like.
Yeah, Orange County has changed quite a lot, though, over the years, for sure.
I've heard that even within the last, because I haven't been home since, I guess, June of last year. So, and I probably won't go back until about December.
Mm.
So because of that, it'll be like a whole year and a half since I've gone back.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I took a drive over there at least like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, and it was definitely very different. I mean, even the childhood home that I was in, it's so different now. It looks way, way different than what it did. They really definitely fixed the place up. That place was so broken down. But no, I mean, just some context for everybody. I've known Eddie for a long time. I met Eddie back in, what would you say, Eddie, 4th grade? Is that when we finally became friends? But we were,
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say we became friends in 4th grade. We were in the same class, but I think we had met, and I want to say maybe 2nd or 3rd grade, at least because we had played recreational
we were
soccer.
rivals.
So my team played your team, and we had met each other kind of that way, and I think we had a mutual friend.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Which you mentioned
But in
that
terms of,
person's name, and I
anything-
can't remember. I was like, who? I was like, oh,
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, man, he really knew you. And I'm like, I don't recall.
Yeah, his name was Danny. When we were going to play you all, because you're a left footer too,
Yes.
right? Okay, so I'm a left footer as well, and so I remember Danny being like, "Hey, there's another left footer on the team. His name is Gabe or Gabriel. He's like, guard him, essentially, like telling me like, you're probably gonna go up against him." And I was like, "All right, I guess." Because were you defense?
I was always
You
defense,
were-
yeah, throughout my whole
Yeah,
like,
and
soccer.
I was a
Yeah.
forward, so that's why he was saying you might go against each
Yep.
other, and I was like,
And we
"All right,
did,
let's
and
do
we
it."
did, and I remember, man, like we got smoked by your team. We got like slapped, like hard, and I and I remember running into you in the bathroom. I feel like it was the bathroom. We're in elementary school.
Well, that's a little
It
creepy.
sounds creepy. I was done using the restroom. We were walking in. I think you're like, oh, hey, like, we know each other or something like that. Maybe it was a dream, but that even sounds worse.
I said that doesn't sound any better.
Dream. We were in the bathroom
Yeah.
together. It's like, let's just stop right there.
Please take me out of that
We
dream.
found love in a hopeless place. Well, anyway,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Anything anybody wants to say before we get started?
3,
Yes,
2,
just
1,
thanks for
go.
All
having
right, we
me.
go. Yeah, thanks, Eddie, for jumping on again. Let's get into it because I think this is going to be a really fun conversation. So, again, the topic for today is are our lives predestined? Episode with Eddie Reyes. All right, so first question, you guys ready for this? So tell me, guys, what does destiny mean to you?
Yeah. I guess what in the context of like how I always think about destiny, it's like, something's meant to be. And I think there's always, at least based on my background, I come from a Catholic background where the idea of like God and stuff, there is this idea that like it's God's plan, so to speak, and that's what destiny is. So for me, destiny is kind of, as mentioned already, a predetermined thing that's going to happen, or like a journey that's bound to happen. So that would be kind of my understanding of it. Like I said, from a religious kind of standpoint, I always think of, many people say the idea or like something was bound to happen, or what's that? I'm like, why am I blanking this common saying that's like, it was meant to be, something along those lines. So that's kind of how I make sense of destiny, that it's predetermined.
It's meant to be. It's meant to be. Well, what does destiny mean to me? Takes me back to 1992. I was in Deja Vu, and there she was on the main stage, Destiny. And all I could think about was just handing her dollar bills. And then I thought, did I marry Destiny? Could this be my destiny? And then I realized, no, that was just actually all in my head. I was having a dream in the restroom. No,
I
I'm
think
kidding. Honestly, to me, I also too grew up in a religious background, but mine was Southern Baptist. So hellfire and brimstone. Everybody's going to die, and just figure it out that way. But I don't really see destiny as the word. I liked your word, Eddie, as like a journey, because you never really understand your destiny until a certain age, I guess. Because not like, at least for me, I don't think that you can just wake up and go, my destiny at the age of what, 2 weeks, 2 minutes is to do this. At some point, it just like you have an epiphany, I guess, and this is what you want to do, or it's your environment that says, well, shoot, this right here is going to be my destiny, I guess. I'm going to go that way. I don't want to, but shoot, that's just the way it is. Hopefully that made sense.
Well said. Well said. No, I mean, I think that for me, it's the same thing. It's a destiny. I mean, it's all just predetermined. The other thing I was going to ask you guys too was, do you believe in destiny? Like, do you think that it's really out there?
So do I believe in destiny? Again, it's funny because I thought about this prior to this meeting, and I would say I'm kind of like 80-20, if that makes sense. Like 80% no, maybe like a 20% yes. But if you want like a steadfast, answer, I don't think I do. I think there was a time where I was more of the belief, and with life experiences that I've had and choices that I've made and just things that have inevitably happened, I wouldn't say I necessarily do. I guess maybe there's a little tint, there's a little bit of still like that Catholic side in me that wants to believe. But like I said, if I had to answer my own answer, I would say maybe like 80% no, maybe 20%. But like I said, if I'm asked to like choose a yes or a no, I would say probably not.
I know you're itching for this one.
Honestly, I think the word could be interchanged with journey, destination, vision, whatever the case may be, where you feel like, that's the word. It's stuff that you experience, at least for me, where my destiny has shifted so many different ways. where it could be your career destiny. It could be your personal destiny. It could be your overall destiny of just like, I just want to be a kind human being, whether it's at work or if it's in my personal life. So you have like your main one. But I think that everybody's destiny or journey is going to be different, and it's going to be different on all the experiences and life events as well that happen that are going to also determine where you go. So that's my idea of like your destiny. You think you know it, and then it changes 5 years later.
I lean more towards believing in destiny just because now that I'm being a father, it just feels more. So I have no free will at times, right? It just feels at the same time, it's just like, well, I'm just going with emotions and things just kind of happen and they go for me or they don't go for me, which is kind of always been my philosophy or my thoughts in a way. As much as I want to believe that, we are able to make our own decisions and have the outcome going our way, it just feels like there was always something fighting me, something always, and it's probably myself, right? We're our own worst enemies at times. I think with my destiny right now is being a father. And I think, Ian and you and I were kind of talking a little bit earlier about that. And I was thinking, oh, well, here's my destiny, and that's all it's ever going to be. But you also mentioned, well, you can have a bunch of different destinies at different times.
I'm a parent. I have a son and a daughter, but they're all grown up and moved out. So my destiny has changed because now I'm not giving, providing for my family and all that stuff because they've moved on. And now it's just me and the wife. And it's shifted a little bit now, Eddie, to where I want to find my personal destiny. So the whole thing with the podcast was like, I've never done this, and I think it would be pretty cool. I wonder who else wants to do it. I wonder if somebody else thinks we're crazy. Hey, Gabe, you know what's weird? I want to do a podcast. And, that's where that started. But then from there, what else do I want to do? I want to also look back at certain pieces of my life and just be able to say, at least I gave it a shot. At least I can say I tried it, liked it, wasn't my gig, wasn't my cup of tea. I'm not going to do that one again. But I can at least have that luxury of saying that I did. One of the things that we talked about too was bucket lists. And that's where all these things started to add up, where it's like, well, I want to create a podcast and do it with Gabe, honestly, because he's like, heck yeah. And him and I have had like, good chemistry, just talking back and forth and sometimes just being stupid, silly. And we've been doing it for a while, and this has been fun. We're kind of holding each other accountable to some of these things and, creating different shows, I guess you would say. But I have always wanted to try, now don't laugh, professional wrestling. And so out in San Marcos, wrestling brand, SoCal Wrestling, they do tryouts. I think it's like once or twice a year. And I follow them on social media. So I'm just hoping that when it's there, and I think it's like I don't know, $100 to give it a shot and try it out. If that's the worst that, I have to spend to get in a ring, jump around, possibly hurt myself and then realize, hey, you're probably too old to do this. But hey, you know what? You did it. You gave it a shot. So in a nutshell, I'm just trying to get into a personal destiny, which is just taking care of myself, being happier, being stress-free or less stress, I guess you would say, because you can't be just empty stress. That's impossible. Yeah, and just trying to live each day and taking time in the day to just acknowledge like, man, that's a cool sunset, or, ooh, that feels good, or just the smells. And it sounds weird and probably too hippie-ish, but, when you get a couple years older, you'll see.
You got to take those pictures to share with your grandkids so people can say, well, look at grandpa. Look, he did wrestling for one day or a couple
Absolutely.
hours.
They don't know
They
that.
don't know that. Exactly.
Yeah.
My definition of destiny doesn't sound like what your definition is. So if we're going to say this idea of like going on a journey and kind of a life's journey, then I 100% agree with that. I think we in some ways like the agents of change, right, in our own life, in our own doing. And so if that's the route we're gonna go, then this is gonna be a very different conversation compared to what I was maybe thinking.
Well, I mean, I feel like I believe more so in that there might be some sort of higher power to sort of guide us to that. Because in my life right now, I've been experiencing a lot of lessons and teachings as a new parent. And it's not always just being like a parent, like something to do with the kids, but some sort of adulting situation. And it just seems to always come at the right time, right? Where it's just like, hey, I should probably learn how to do that. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, whoa, that situation just kind of came up right now. Good thing I looked it up. So it just almost feels like I'm not saying there is, but it just always feels like recently something's just kind of leaving little crumbs of like, hey, you might want to learn how to do this real quick. You're gonna need this. Here's a test. You right? Like otherwise you're gonna have to learn on your own. But it almost I lean more towards the side that I feel that there is a predestined fate. So I lean more towards that. It seems like you were saying, you don't believe it, as 80%. You don't 20% you want to think that there's some sort of destiny there. And then Ian, you just seem like you're kind of right in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing that you are probably predestined for from a medical standpoint is, hey, did your parents have high blood pressure and a heart attack? Well, guess what?
Yep.
You may want to keep an eye on that, or
Mhm.
Alzheimer's, or dementia, or Parkinson's. That's a predestined thing that's kind of already in your DNA.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there is that.
I mean, there's always, been destiny that or the stories too, right? Like Romeo and Juliet, the star-crossed lovers situation, and you see it in real life a lot of the times. Like, ooh, that's a really bad idea, but they're really going for it, and it's like, why would somebody do that, right? Knowing how bad it is for you. I mean, I've been in a toxic relationship before, and I was like, oh man, but this it has to work. It's just got to. I'm gonna be the first one to be with my high school sweetheart. Like that's not how it goes. I don't know what movies or stories I've been watching, Romeo and Juliet. But yeah, I just feel at the same time that it's it feels like it's more of I believe it, and so we'll keep going with these questions and we'll see where we end up. Because you guys might make me to be like, oh, you know what? Forget it. Actually, I don't believe in destiny anymore. And I'm always open to changing my mind. And this is not what the format's about, obviously. It's more so acts of kindness. It's about breaking down those barriers and those walls and just kind of creating a kinder world in a sense. And you might be thinking, well, what does destiny have to do with that? But I think a lot of the times we're a little unkind to ourselves, taking in the idea that maybe there is destiny and I'm not meant for much. And then there's the vice versa. Like sometimes you might think that you're the hot shit and then you're like putting other people down because of it. Right. So that's the only reason why I kind of bring this up. So I know, Eddie, you don't really believe in destiny necessarily, but I want to ask if destiny existed, do you think that we're on the right track to meet our destinies or, like you said, journeys?
I am the destiny of like kind of reaching my journey. I would say I'm figuring it out. I didn't grow up in North Carolina, but I currently live in North Carolina. And having moved from California to North Carolina, just having visited and lived in other places in the country, it's this idea of like, well, trying to find my place and trying to find, in some ways my destiny, right? Because I went from being someone who wanted to be a rock star musician to kind of being fully engrossed in education. And that kind of became my life where I thought I was going to be a musician, right? When I was in high school. And then I thought I was going to be an English high school teacher. And then I thought I was going to be a university professor teaching communication. And like life happened. And again, going back to this idea of the journey, a lot of things kind of happened in the way, you know, because of me internally and as well as things happening externally. So I would say I'm in the process of finding out exactly what my journey is. I know that it is wanting to help people. And again, if we're going with this idea of like acts of kindness And if that's kind of the theme of it, like for me, that genuinely, and I think Gabe can attest to this, that's always been something that's at the forefront for anything that I wanted to do. It was always a matter of connecting with people, making feel making people feel welcomed and part of a community, because I'm a firm believer that we do more together, right, rather than separate. So being, in North Carolina right now and really not knowing anyone, it was just me and my wife where, we moved out here. We're trying to find our own footing and trying to find, again, if we want to say like our own destiny and our own journeys here, because again, we're really starting from scratch in many ways. And so with that being said, it's kind of TBD. I know that I still want to do something that it's helping others and educating them in some form or fashion. I think it just kind of depends on like what through what means. Like Ian, the reason I was saying, hey, like I don't think there's anything wrong with having that dream of still wanting to do wrestling, because despite the fact that I'm almost 20 years removed from my plans of being a musician, it's
Yeah.
never gone away. I've always wanted to like play music, and I've always wanted to start a band. And we did, Gabe, myself, and like a few of our friends, we did have a band. We never did much, but like I'll always joke around and say, hey, when are we gonna get the science project together? And that is, again, legitimately, that's always been something that I've wanted to do. And similar to like what you said, like not having that regret of like, hey, at least I tried it. At least I tried to do that. So like I said, I think right now my journey is TBD, because I'm in a brand new place that I'm still kind of finding my footing. But above all, it will always be with the intention to help others kind of find, their own passions and finding their own kind of their own like meaning. The quote is like, I have meaning if you find it in yourself. And I've always really enjoyed that lyric specifically, because I feel like that's always been kind of the journey for me. It's like, if I can help you see how valuable you are and how important you are, and how much you matter, like I've done my job. So that's at the forefront what I want my journey to be, and how to, I guess, be remembered.
Now, I remember you being really passionate about music, like you said, and you're the one who got me into music. So I remember you left soccer, you stopped playing soccer, and then you started playing music. And I remember my mom and even Andrew's mom also probably were like, no, Eddie's trying to take them away from soccer. They're gonna join a band. And that's what we did. We started playing music and we recorded a couple things. We took some band photos and put it on MySpace at the time. And that was it, right? We had a song, Annalisa, which was our top song.
So stay.
And
That was the
so
one that you
stay.
wrote that I kind of like took up.
Yeah, you played the guitar, the drums, the bass, and you ended up singing for it too. But no, I mean, good times. I remember because in my I didn't I wasn't passionate about anything, and I started thinking, I'm like, well, I'm not really gonna do anything with soccer necessarily. Like I liked playing it, but I didn't see myself doing anything professionally or going to school for it. So playing in music, I wanted to, like, the idea of it seemed cool, right? Everybody wants to be a rock star, everybody wants to be in a band and play a show, but did I really, like, put that much attention to it? No. I didn't really, like, put that much effort. It was always just kinda jamming and playing little melodies, but nothing crazy. At least for me. And I remember there was a couple times where we would record and we wouldn't always be on the same page because we always had like different thoughts on like what should we play. Like mostly we were like on the same page. But there were times where like, oh, I'm more into metal and you're more into like the indie and emo. And I was into emo too, but you kind of got me into that portion of the music. And we started going to shows and it was fun. And I really felt like you were really going to, get into the music thing, at least like if not an artist or in a band. I think you were didn't you try music, like engineering at one point? Or am I wrong on that?
No, I was going to study that for a bit. And
Okay.
then I did get exposure into like music and then
Mhm.
started doing like music theory. But I think the big part of it that, again, it sounds like cheesy to say, but it felt like very constrictive of like,
Mm.
or constricted, right? In terms of
Creativity and
there
stuff.
were rules you had to follow. And that was the whole
Mm.
point of music. Like, it's not, there aren't supposed to be rules. It's supposed to be just for fun and a passion. And so I think the more that I got exposed into like, I mean, one part was like the business side of it. I don't know if you remember this game, but like for our high school, we had to do like a capstone senior project. Do you remember that?
Mm.
So I don't know if you remember this, but like I took full advantage of that where they were giving us time off to go like meet
Yeah.
people in the field and go do
Mhm.
things. So like I interviewed a few record labels or a few like indie record label owners, and I got to interview quite a few bands like in like the indie rock emo circuit. And in chatting with them, I think that was the first time where I was kind of questioning, okay, do I really want to do this? And kind of like you mentioned, I think prior to that, I was all in. Like, that's all I wanted to do. I remember like going to sleep at like sometimes 2 a.m., 3 a.m., just being in my parents' garage, like in my little, mishmash recording studio, the dark room, right? And like,
Dark room. Yeah.
and just spending hours like in there. And through that capstone project, one of the things that really stood out to me, and again, this is kind of like dating myself to some degree, in the early to mid 2000s, that's when the illegal downloading of music was happening, like your Napster, your Kazaa, like all of those things. And the music industry was like turning up on its own head, right? It was like turning upside down because people weren't making money off CDs anymore. And like the touring was kind of the only means of making money, but then gas prices even then were like really bad. And so pretty much everyone in the music industry, and this goes back to like that capstone project, almost everyone in the music industry unanimously was kind of telling me like this is not the time to go into the music industry, especially kind of the indie rock emo scene. Like I don't know if you remember the band Hidden in Plain View. So like I remember chatting with their bassist Chris, and they were kind of already, the writing on the was on the wall that that band was going to be breaking up, and he kind of gave me like a like almost like a heads up notice that like this is going to be happening. And I'm now, I think he was in his mid to late 20s, and he was saying like, don't get me wrong, I'm forever grateful that I've done this, but now that I'm going to go out into the world and now that I'm going to go, like have a normal like non-touring life, there's some fear to that because like what can I have on my resume despite the fact that like I've just been touring in a band. And in talking to even like some of the record label owners, like I don't know if you remember the Militia Group. Militia
Yep.
Group had bands like Acceptance, Cartel,
Cartel. Yeah.
um, Cope, and they were kind of giving me the same rundown of like, if you want to go into this industry, you have to be comfortable with like one, kind of not making any money, not having stability. And even a lot of like the bands were kind of telling me, we're on the road sometimes 9, 10 months out of the year. So, you're going to be missing birthdays, you're going to be missing weddings, you're going to be missing all of these like major life events. And are you okay with that? And so I think that was like the first bit of information that was making me question, do I really want to do this? And so one of the pieces of advice given to me was, well, if you don't have a record deal already, which obviously I didn't, if you don't have a record deal, then go to a community college first, start working on a degree, start working on your education, because at least you have something to fall back on if like, music doesn't work or if it doesn't end up happening. And it wasn't a matter of them like being mean or saying like, don't pursue your dreams. But I think for them, they were also realistic of like, hey, this is kind of a weird time to be in the music industry. And so because of that, like there is no there's no set rule book of how this works. It's a lot of luck, realistically. And so yeah, so that's kind of how I went into education, and like was majoring in music, I think like first semester, and like took a music class, and the more I got exposure to like theory, and like I took a guitar class, and it just wasn't fun, I guess is the best way I can describe it. It's kind of when I realized, okay, maybe I don't want to do this. And the other part of like why I was questioning whether I wanted to do this or not was because the music industry as a whole was so cutthroat. Like, and so much of it is like, how much are you willing to play the game? And that's not me. If I don't like something, I don't want to do it. If I don't, I, I can't. It's very hard for me to have a poker face if I don't like something.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like I've kind of hijacked the
No,
conversation to something
no,
different,
no,
so
no,
I
this is
apologize.
perfect because this is kind of where, I mean, do you have any regrets at all with not getting into the industry? Even though you've done all the research, you know, you
Yeah,
did your due diligence, you looked everything up, but do you regret like not just taking that leap of faith and just saying, you know what, everyone's telling me no, I'm gonna do it anyway.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I mean,
Mhm.
I think there are times where, I mean, and I've had this conversation with my wife as well, where I could just have been like pursued it and gotten a taste of the industry and like would have regretted doing that. So, I think it can go both ways, but
Yeah.
man, I kind of wish I would have tried it at least. But I think, and this kind of goes back to maybe something that, like, thinking about destiny, I wish I would have at least tried it. I think because growing up, kind of in an immigrant household, like, money was never in abundance. It was like, you're
Mhm.
living to your means as much as you can. That I think the idea of having that instability was a huge, like, I guess I don't want to say red flag, but it was one of those things of, okay, like, do my parents did all of these things, and they sacrificed a lot. So why am I going to be going a route that is literally going to do the complete opposite of what they were hoping for me, right?
Put
So,
everyone in more debt. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so, and that's the thing about being a musician. And I mean, you can hear so many stories about it where, like, even as you're getting signed, you're already in debt because you're given X amount of money to go make a record. And then you often do not recoup that record until like after you've done X years of touring, X amount of like money that's spent. I mean, the more that I looked into the music industry, the more that it just didn't make sense, because it very much is, and it very much is a passion project, because most bands don't start making money until maybe like album 2 or 3, if that. Again, and that's if you're lucky, right? And most bands aren't. So I think there's I don't want, again, I don't know if I would use the term regret, but like I always think about, well, what would that have been like had I actually gone for it? Like I think about right now, I don't know if you know this, but like the Starting Line literally just released an album yesterday, like after
What? Yeah.
18 years. And like to me, I saw them earlier this month here in Charlotte. And I can only imagine what that feels like to have years off of like something that you gradually kind of ended up not liking, to then come back to it with a brand new set of eyes to say like I was, young, and like I had an ego then. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. Like part of me thinks it would have been cool to like have gotten signed, done all of that, like toured, made memories. I probably would have become jaded at some point, but I think as you get older, you start to get a lot of perspective, and you realize like a lot of the stuff that you were concerned about in the past that maybe doesn't really matter all that much. Because again, it's a tell that I'm seeing so much with a lot of bands when they're reuniting after like 10 plus years. It's like you're
Mhm.
just come in with a different perspective because you've had other life experiences. So like as I think about how all of these bands are reuniting to like play albums, and again bring joy to people that once were fans, part of me was always thinks like, that would have been so cool to be part of the scene, to then come back and do something cool like that. So thanks, Gabe,
Yeah.
for not letting me live out my
Hey,
dreams.
that's what we're all about here on Acts of Kindness. Kindness isn't always
Yeah,
a
and
good
we talk
thing.
about
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we like to do too is like we'll have these random talks. Is it's we have like what if scenarios all the time. We really like to talk about it. Like, well, why didn't you? Well, what if this was different? What if you didn't have kids? What if you didn't have wife? Well, then shoot, yeah, I guess I could. All right, what's holding you back from doing that? Well, this, and this. Well, what if you didn't have to do that? What if you just said, no, I don't want to do that? So we try to break down some of those walls to where you go, well, shoot, I guess I can do it. I've been trying to make him wear this for God knows how long, just so he could just track it. Yeah, see, here we go. But anyways, we're still all a work in progress. And to your point, Eddie, you're never too late to give it a shot. Maybe you get into the room and you just start jamming out and it's like, yeah, I don't feel it. And then it's like, hey, you know what? At least I went in there, I jammed out for a little bit, had fun, but yeah, I just can't see myself doing this all the time, or it just didn't feel the same. But at least I tickled that itch or itched that scratch, whatever, and gave it a shot. So at least you could just say, all right, I checked that off. But man, can you imagine if you get in there and it just blows your mind and it's like the second coming and you're just like, I can't believe I waited this long to try it. Now I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
I mean, you could start with making Acts of Kindness little jingle for our podcast, or mess around with the AI music like Ian is doing.
I don't know what
I
you're
mean,
talking
I
about.
think Gabe knows this, but Ian, this is the first time we're meeting. So again, like I have quite a bit of guitars.
Yeah.
I
How
won't.
many
I
guitars,
won't
Eddie?
mention how many because it's kind of a problem. But
Oh boy.
all that to say, like, yeah, like that's kind of what I try to do in my spare time of, yeah, just like jamming. And even that, like right now, is a huge form of like stress relief, of just kind of getting lost in the zone of like putting my headphones on, guitar pedals, making like atmospheric sounds. And that's fun for me. Like that's legitimately what I love doing. But like right now I took on like a second class to teach, which is like taking up more time than I expected, which is ultimately taking away from time that I could be kind of jamming. So because of that, like I'm trying to scale it back and say, all right, let me go back to basics and just do the things that like I genuinely want to do, because life is short and money comes and goes and it's nice to have some extra money, but at what cost if I'm not enjoying it? So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, let's move on to the next one. I mean, this one might get a little controversial. It could be. But let's say there is a higher power. Are you content with your current situation? Just say that there is something that everything is predestined,
Yeah.
right? Let's pretend. And would you be content with your current direction in life?
I think as of right now, like, yes, I mean there would still be some things that I would want to do. However, I don't know. I mean, like I feel like I've done a lot more than a lot of people I've kind of met. And so I think again, my wife and I, we try to like check ourselves, I guess, to be more grateful about things. Because again, I don't, out of like our group of friends that I kind of grew up with, like I feel like I'm the only one that's ever moved out of state. I'm the only one that's ever like gotten a master's degree, or like, so I've been able to do things. I have a, good life, a good wife. I have a pretty good life. I mean, so I would say I would still, love to pursue music, but at the end of the day, I could say, yeah, I'm pretty content with where I am. Like I do miss friends and family, living in across the country. But at the end of the day, like I've got my health and I've got a good life, and my wife and I, are healthy. We're good. So I would say in that sense, I'm content. Yeah.
Mine's a real quick and easy answer. No, I've been living the heathen life. And but all I need to do is on my deathbed to say, I accept you, higher power, and I'm in.
Oh, it works, right?
So yeah, so I'll just use my get out of jail card, and hey, I'm right there in line, buddy. You won't see me in that old rapture.
Quick and easy.
Bingo.
They make it
I
seem.
got my
I was
lottery
ready
Yeah.
ticket.
for it. I was so ready.
Yeah, I'm sure you would get in. Yeah. You know, they make it seem like so hard. It's like just very quick and easy, just like our Blue Chew, our sponsor today. Wait, no, we don't have a sponsor. But
Hey
yeah,
guys, do you have a hard time
yeah,
getting hard? Well, try the new blue pill by Blue and Easy,
we're gonna.
fresh and
Are
sleazy.
you predestined to fuck? Take Blue Chew. There you go, man. We solved it.
Exactly. And that's where I bleep all that
Yeah,
out.
that's true. If you don't forget, otherwise we get demonetized, as if we ever even had anything. But anyway, so I think that with the higher power thing, and it's funny because you mentioned the rapture. I'm sure my dad was just like waiting for that like day. He's just like, yeah, he was already burying his body, and he's thinking he's gonna like float up and into the sky. But I think for me with the whole higher power piece, I mentioned earlier, I do kind of feel like something's watching. It doesn't have to be like the Christian God or a God that already exists, but for me, it's just really hard to believe, and I've been thinking about this a lot, like what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? And it's like you think about the universe overall and how how did that get created? And Ian, I know you're gonna try and stop me, before I go down the rabbit hole, but it for me, it just feels like all of this seems to have something to do with a higher power. We all saw the Matrix, and there was the one Neo, and it was almost like a resemblance to like Jesus Christ, right? Like, but at the same time, and I'm not trying to get down that rabbit hole necessarily, but what I'm trying to get at is that I do
This
feel
is the
like
wrong
there's.
podcast for that.
I know, I'm sorry, but I'm just saying I do feel like there is a higher power. Something is guiding me, and I don't really have much say so in how things are gonna come to fruition in the future. I've had it pretty good so far. Like growing up, I mean, it was rough, being in my household, my dad, Eddie. But at the same time, I'm in a better spot than I was. And I know that there's also that Simpsons reference, where this is like the worst day of my life, but they say this is the worst day of your life so far. And it's a scary thought to think that what we think is bad, it could always be worse, or it will get worse, right? Depending on your outlook. So right now, I just feel like
But again,
I
if I may,
yeah,
but I always say, but it could always be better. If you can have that mindset of, well, it could be worse, then I always challenge people to say, but then it could also be better. And in this instance, like, look at it from that perspective if you're working towards something better, right?
that's true. I mean, your worst possible thing when you just had like something else happen to you just before that was bad, it's probably your best day compared to that. So I mean, yeah, the glass is always half full in a sense, and I agree with that to a point. I mean, not all bad things that happen to you are necessarily bad. It could be a good thing because now you learned a lesson if it wasn't, that detrimental to you, right? There's always the people, my wife always tells me like, "Oh man, like you don't really yeah, you're that type of person that doesn't appreciate a lot of things until you're like put in a wheelchair and then that's when you're like, "Oh,
Well,
I miss my leg."
I would say
I
like
wish
to that,
yeah.
I would talk about like just my experience, doing grad school in Texas. That was I mean, in hindsight, like at the time, it was an awful experience. I'm forever grateful for the experience, but it was incredibly difficult. And I mean, you can attest to this. I was an awful person after it. I feel like I changed a lot as a result of that happening. And like, hindsight's 2020, right? Where that event was a catalyst for other things that I think in general did end up making my life better. So kind of again, not to go back to like that whole idea of destiny, but I'm a firm believer of like whatever happens to you and the events that happen in your life, how you react to them and how you move on from them really helps determine your journey, so to speak. And again, I can go into that a little bit later, but I wanted to say that because I think it was like relevant to what you had mentioned, that there's this idea that bad things happen to you, but those bad things can then ultimately lead to good things.
Yeah. Then I'll hold off on if you're gonna go more into it later, then I'll hold my question for you until later then. No, I definitely believe in that. I think that sometimes we're just tested and there's like these trials we need to go through, and it's almost like the Greek gods, right? Like they want like the strongest, the people. There's like the Olympics and stuff like that. I'm starting to believe a little bit more of that. Like I almost feel that we're put on here to really test, how durable we are. Like, can we stand up to the challenges that we're given? And from there, maybe we'll be greeted with some sort of present, or maybe we can be put on that pedestal, or you can get that attaboy, that you weren't given when you were younger because you were just here. You just got to face those challenges, deal with it head on, and then from there, maybe you can be rewarded. So I don't know. I kind of like that idea a little bit more. It just makes sense. I don't do much though. I don't live up to it. So it does kind of suck because if that is true, well, shit, I'm not doing anything. But yeah, I like to believe that maybe there is something else. Ian, you had already gone. You're just gonna get on your hands and knees and beg for forgiveness. You said, right?
Yeah, pretty much, because that's all I have to do, based
Yeah,
on based on the word.
that makes sense, man. That's the easy way. I like that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, come on, keep it simple, right?
Yeah, keep it simple, stupid. I like that. Is being born with a destiny, or do you guys think being born with a destiny is more comforting than not? So whether you believe in this whole, predestined will kind of thing, if it really was a thing, do you find that more comforting than not? And let me know if you guys need another example.
Honestly, with that one, if you already know your destiny, and what if you don't like it?
Mhm.
What if it's like, no, I don't want to be in a castle as the prince or princess and, just live this lavish lifestyle? I could see that certain scenario where people are like, yeah, I'll take that, 10 times out of 10. But maybe you don't want to live in the projects or be born into the projects, and you're in a bad economy, your parents don't make a lot of money, you're going to a really bad school because you live in the bad parts, so you're really fighting to go uphill to get the education that you're looking for, and then you're really probably not even focusing at school. You're probably spending a lot of time just making sure that you can make it through the day alive, versus you're just, you're mellow, you're able to pay attention, focus. But that, I think, is probably a lot more of reality. Not saying everybody, but a good majority of people that are struggling because they weren't, I guess, born into destiny, so to speak. And that's unfortunate.
I mean, yeah, kind of the same to a certain extent. Like again, it's funny because a lot of these conversations I end up having with my wife about like sometimes I kind of like the idea. Like again, if this has been made clear, I myself am not super religious. I grew up in a Catholic background, but after time, I didn't identify with, I didn't, agree with the teachings, and so as a result, kind of distance myself from it. And my wife and I have kind of talked about this, where like this idea that a lot of people go in with that mindset of like, well, this is God's plan and this is what's supposed to happen, and to have this like belief that it's like all of this, like, I know I'm going to be okay because there is this higher power that is going to take care of me. And again, I think about a lot of like my family from Mexico that like literally have so much they don't have as much as I have, but yet they have that like belief that well, because, in some ways, like, God is on my side, I'm going to be okay. I think the hard part about that is kind of like with what Ian is talking about. If you grow up in an area that is, kind of dangerous, or in an area that isn't helping you grow to be the person that you want to be, I think to kind of say, like, well, I'm predestined to just kind of stay in this situation. I don't believe that. I think, like, yeah, you can do something different, or if you want to, you should aspire to do something different. So I don't know if that's kind of like, Ian, what you're kind of going with, but I'm of that belief of, like, if something is predestined, so to speak, like by a higher power, I think you have the will, I guess, to change that.
I definitely agree. It's how much you have to basically swim upstream. It's going to be a little bit harder for that individual to get to the next level than it would be somebody who's, from a middle class or upper middle class. I mean, even just saying upper echelon poverty, because that's kind of where a lot of people really are. They're just teetering on that middle class and poverty line, and it's basically a couple $100. But it just means you have to put a lot more work in and more discipline on yourself to be able to do that. So it can be done, but it just sucks for that individual.
Well, mine sort of leads into harsh truths. So, are you guys ready for harsh truths? We have our segment, Harsh Truths, Predestination versus Free Will. All right. The question we asked earlier was, is being born with a destiny more comforting than not? Now, I have a question for you guys, or just a scenario. Okay. So, are we living in someone else's reality? And is our destiny meaningless? Let's just say I'm driving down the road. Driving my car, trying to get home, and I hit a tree. Now, my life is over. I hit that tree going at, 65 miles per hour, and I'm gone. But that tree is still there. That tree, I took maybe a little bit of a chunk out of it, but that tree now grows even stronger because I wounded it, and now it's growing even thicker bark. It's getting stronger. So maybe the destiny wasn't necessarily on not that it wasn't on my side, but my destiny was to hit that tree, to make that tree even stronger, to withstand whatever other, obstacles comes its way. So I think as humans, as people, we often think that, oh, I have a destiny, and it's usually I'm destined for greatness. But what does that mean? And is it always something to do with greatness? Or are we just the side characters in somebody's story? Is there a main character out there? Is there somebody out there who actually can make a change and make a difference? Like our president. Sorry, no, I don't mean to get controversial. But anyway, so what happens is now that tree was much more important. It had more of a destiny than I did, because for whatever was going to come its way, destiny made sure that I made it stronger. Anybody have any input on that?
Yes.
What, Ian? What are you going to say?
You were collateral damage.
Yes.
Thank you for playing.
Yeah, right.
You get a gold star.
Wasted. Yeah.
Maybe it was a wish, and it just so happens you were in the area and you were geo-fenced in, and then just, oh,
Yeah.
good job,
Yeah.
man. It is a harsh
It
reality.
is. It is. I think that there are certain people that go, and this became a reality for me when I was at Starbucks. I worked over in the Buena Park Starbucks. Eddie remembers that. And there was Isaac. He was a really, really exciting guy to work with. I don't know if you remember him, Eddie. He was like the Filipino guy that we worked with, Isaac. And he was always just very happy, go lucky, and he was always fun to be around and had a positive attitude. Well, we lost him, like, I think it was 2 years ago. He passed away due to, like, he had heart complications. And I didn't know he had that issue, but I guess it was kind of known, like, he knew he had that problem. So it's tough to think that, you have some sort of disease or something like that that will end your life at some point, maybe sooner than you think. I never thought that it would happen to that guy. I thought, "Oh, man, that guy's gonna do some awesome things, some great things," and he did. He worked for a bank and he was happy, but at the end of the day, like, he's not here with us anymore. And you think, "Wow, shit, man, that guy was always so happy, made everybody else feel really good." We lost one more person that, brings a smile to people's faces. And then sometimes you just have those people that moan and groan and just don't make a positive difference. They're still around. That are here to still, not still as in still stuff, but just that are here still to just kind of just share that sort of, those feelings with other people and just kind of cause that cancerous sort of vibe around other people, make them
Yeah.
feel, sort of the same way that they do. Sorry, I couldn't even put my words together at that point. But that was the first time I realized, I'm like, man, it can happen to me. I could end up being that person that one day I'm here and I'm happy, and it always made me kind of scared to sort of be happy because I don't know if Eddie knew this. I might have told him, but I always told my wife, like, I'm scared. I'm afraid to be happy because if I'm too happy, something bad's going to happen. And from there, it's like it always happened. I end up like, okay, I'm gonna be more positive. I'm gonna think more positive thoughts. The next thing you know, something happens that like wrecks my day. Where I'm like, I can't escape it. So I always kind of live with the idea of, well, calm down there. Don't get too excited because, something's going to really just kind of kick you down a notch because you're not supposed to be that excited or that happy about things. So the idea that maybe I'm not the main character in my story, that maybe I am a side character, that something that happens to me or something that I do ends up being better off for someone else. And I don't know. I mean, you hear stories. I know, Ian, you're in the military, and you have people that end up in the war zone, that get shot and killed or that jump on a grenade that save everybody else. And yeah, I'm sure you got to think like, oh man, like why them in some ways. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that. You don't have to go down that road, but that's just stuff that I've seen where I'm just like, you just kind of question, like, well, why that person, right? Why that guy at Starbucks that I used to work with? Why did it happen to that person? They were so young, they had so much potential. And so you start thinking like, is there really, and that's where it's kind of hard to believe in predestination because at the same time, it's tough to think, like you guys were saying, if somebody is born in in a bad area and just can't get out of it, that sucks. Kids that are digging up, diamonds, like blood diamonds. It's like they're getting their limbs cut off because they can't bring, the right amount of diamonds. And so it sucks to think that, wow, you can say karma. Some people believe karma, where it's like, if you have enough karma, good things will happen, or, you get reborn on this wheel of samsara, and all of a sudden you're in a different life, but maybe that life ends up being you, that kid who has to dig up diamonds. Like, why me? But then you're born again, or you die, and then you're reincarnated, and then now you're in a better position, and now you're that rich guy that's like, oh man, yes, I knew it happened to me. How do you know that? How do you know that you're that that reincarnation for one, karma, and then predestination? How do we really know? Because as much as I want to believe in it, it's also kind of unfair to say that it's a thing just because my life is good, right? Just because I'm like, hey, I have everything that I want right now, and that person doesn't because, well, you must have done something that pissed somebody off, you know? You must have really pissed up God in some other life. And that person's like, dude, I'm an atheist. I'm just here one time and then I'm gone. Right? Like, that's it. Darkness afterwards. But I don't know. I know I went off on a little tangent. That's what I do. But I just want to see if you guys have any thoughts on any of that.
Honestly, Gabe, the reality that you decide to live in can be simply your own. You are the one that controls a lot of this stuff. You control how you should feel. You control what you should eat. You can control your movements. And you should be able to continue to do that. Now, if you want to bring somebody into your reality, which in their reality might be a little bit a part of your reality too. And so think of like your group of people, the people you work with, your friends, people that you meet on occasion, and that's kind of your reality. But there could be a bigger reality that you don't even know about. through the news and all that stuff, and that can kind of blur the edges and all that stuff. But it's really what you want to believe and what you want to move forward on. Maybe you want to solely focus on just the music and you don't even care about the rest of the other stuff. So you're not even worried about finances, politics. You're not into, you're just focused on this. And, hey, that's all you see. That's your reality. And you don't necessarily have to, because other people have theirs. You don't even have to worry about theirs. It's because you're not in their time zone or in their bubble, their geofencing. Now, if you go into their geofencing, oh crap, that might actually rub you the wrong way. So you just avoid that reality, I guess you would say. Oh, one last
Yeah.
thing to your last point. Well, the reason why those bad people can continue to live is like it's the old saying, assholes live forever. They have a shirt, I think, that has it where you can wear it, and it's like, oh, of course, you're an
Yeah.
asshole. Duh.
Well,
Eddie, you had something?
yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, you talk about the idea of like being the side character for like another person or another thing. You use that example of the tree, but I would say I would question that because at the end of the day, everyone's like playing their own game, so to speak. I mean, the fact that you have like at this point 2 kids, right? Like you're the main character. Like you are finding out how to manage those things. And I guess like the best way I can describe it, it's like you're not a side character. Maybe you're playing you're playing your own game, but you can also play like a co-op, right? So it reminds me of when you used to play like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, right? You could play that game on your own, but you could also have other side characters and friends that now make this a collaborative story. So yeah, so I would say I don't know if I believe in this idea of being someone's side character. I think maybe you can play like a co-op game, but at the end of the day, like you have your own journey as well. And who's not to say that, you're not playing a co-op game at this point with like Claire or Karen, because they would be able to see you as someone important more than just a side character. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say about that. And especially kind of going back to like what Ian was saying, I think there is the way I see it, like there's different realities, right? Like there's kind of what's going on in the world and in some ways like what impacts us as a whole. But then there's also the like the immediate reality that we live in, right? Where like the day to day, because and I'm guilty of this too. Like I can look at what's going on TV and what's happening in this country and kind of like have a little bit of anxiety about that. But the downside is like if I'm bringing that anxiety into my little reality, my little universe, that's then going to impact my wife. That's then going to impact like my day to day. And so I'm not saying that it's not important, but this goes back to that idea of like, I think we're playing multiple co op games. And at some point, it's like, well, which one are you going to focus on a little bit more? So that's why I'm saying I think in the context of like being your own main character, this kind of goes to the idea of like, it's your journey and what are you going to do with it? It's your life. What do you want to do with it? Because if you're going to have this mindset of like, I'm always going to be the side character, then to me, I question, then are you living your life for someone else if that's the case, or are you really doing it for you?
I like that. That's an interesting take. The whole like bubble aspect for me, where and it's funny you brought up Marvel Ultimate Alliance. That's been a long time. Love that game. But yeah, no, that's true. And that kind of goes along with like what Ian was saying earlier too, where it's like, how do you know like that your destiny, there's all kinds of different destinies and having those bubbles where it's like, yeah, I might be essential in Karen's life and Claire's life and many different people's lives, your guys' lives, right? Like I might be the side character in that essentially, but it doesn't mean that it's not meaningful. So that that does make a lot of sense.
It's you, Gabe. You just validated
I know, it
yourself.
feels good.
That's step
I know,
one.
man.
That is step one. Holy
Well, you
crap.
take one step
No, Eddie,
forward.
this is a breakthrough. This is a breakthrough. I'm so glad we hit record
Yeah.
right now.
Just right now, right? So
When you got your green screen up, holy crap. There's a first for everything. It's a
there is.
breakthrough.
It's a really good episode, a really good first episode. So there's one thing that you said to me, Eddie, in the past, and I don't know if you remember when or why you said it, but I just want to see if you remember. I forgive, but I don't forget. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Again, I still hold that. Like,
Yeah,
I think the act of forgiving someone is being able to kind of like put your own stuff aside, put your own anger, maybe frustration aside, but at the same time, I would hope you don't forget it because it's a learning experience. Like it kind of goes back to that idea of like, all right, fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, and that's shame on me, right? I think that's
yeah.
again, I always like think about the George Bush quote, well, you can't fool me twice. So with that being said, I think any time that you are wronged or that, someone does something that like upsets you, it's like, okay, like, hey, you're forgiven, but that is something that I'm going to take notice of so that I know next time, like, how can I handle this differently? How can I approach it differently? So yeah, I still think that. And maybe I think when I maybe said that back in the day, it was more like vindictive and more like, screw you, like I'm never going to forget that. But I think over time, I think, being a human, you're gonna make mistakes. I think all humans make mistakes. I know I've made plenty of mistakes. And I would want, in some ways, like I would want to be held accountable of like if someone forgave me about something that I did in the past, I wouldn't want them to forget that because it's like, well, that's what's leading us to this current scenario. Like, I mean, I could talk about our experience. If you want me to go there,
I was
uh,
gonna say I feel like some people aren't gonna understand the context, but I'm totally fine with you sharing if
are
you
you
want to share.
okay?
It doesn't bother me. Yeah.
If you're okay sharing
You know
me
what I was
sharing that,
you know what I was hoping you would say though? I don't remember what you're talking about. And then I would be like, oh, so you have forgotten. But but go ahead. Let's hear it.
okay. Well, in a
Yeah.
nutshell, because again, I want to make this brief because I can also go on tangents. But in a nutshell, when Gabe was dating someone when he was younger that I just did not think was a good person for them, I think they were pretty toxic. And I think it was just a toxic relationship for both of them. I think they both had their issues that they needed to work out. With that said, Gabe like spiraled really bad. And we were kind of doing, myself included, trying to invite him to things, be part of things. And there was one trip in particular where Gabe, again, I'm just gonna say it, Gabe ruined the night. Gabe like got too he got too drunk, drank too much. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
I wasn't gonna like call it out, but sure we could say that. Yeah.
It's always me.
But
We're very open here too, by the way.
okay, I just wanted to make sure. So I think it was my brother's ex-girlfriend's birthday weekend, and we were just like essentially partying it up. And legitimately, Gabe ruined the night. Gabe ruined the night for everyone because he drank too much and he ended up like causing a scene. And so this goes back to that saying of like, I forgave Gabe. And I remember like having a conversation with him the next morning and literally telling him everything that he did. And he couldn't like wrap his mind around it. And I remember telling him, you pull something like that again, and in a nice, more colorful language, but because this is being recorded, I won't say it. I pretty much cussed him out and I was like, you ever pull something like that again, you are dead to me. I will not talk to you because like this was my last straw. Like I was genuinely at my breaking point because of what had happened and how bad it got. And so again, have I forgotten that? No. but like I've forgiven Gabe, and I can understand now, with experience and with, just life, with just time, I can now see like a point where I was probably in a similar mindset to him. We just did it at different times. Because I remember like my breaking point that I remember being like, oh, I can't act like that anymore, was the Pacquiao fight. Like I had like a
Again, I was
mental
like
I
passed F out too.
I had a mental breakdown like that night. And yeah, so it's one of those things where, you have life experience, and I forgave Gabe, but I didn't forget because it was a big deal. And I hope that he also didn't forget, because it was a lesson learned, where it's like, hey, like I need to work on myself to get better. And that moment happened for me again a few years later, maybe like 2-3 years later. So yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple more problems after that, so I didn't necessarily learn from that. It took me a little bit longer to learn because I
Well,
had
you
another
didn't have
Vegas.
him around me, so I'll say
I
that.
didn't have them around you, exactly. So I learned that, you can fuck around it, don't fuck around with Eddie. So, so that exactly. So that's where like I had a couple more incidents, and I ended up using alcohol as kind of like a way. I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic. I don't think I was. I was just use alcohol to really just like bring up the mood in a lot of things. Like even to take a bath, I would just have like a Jack Daniels, just to relax. Yeah. So I would be drinking like Jack from a rocks glass and just feeling like, okay, well, I'm sophisticated.
You have
No
bubbles?
bubbles. I wish I had bubbles. I would have
What?
used bubbles.
Why would
I
you?
didn't.
What, a bath
We didn't.
bomb?
No. Well, this was. I don't know. I didn't know bath bombs were a thing when I was doing that. It was like
Mr.
I was like 20.
Bubbles?
I could have had Mr. Bubbles, but I was like probably what 23, 22, 23 at the time. I didn't have Mr. Bubbles, but I would just drink because I liked being the life of the party. But then at some point when my relationship really went bad, a lot of the demons started coming out with that. And so then that's when a lot of like when I would be fine if I drank a certain amount, but then once I went over that, the demons would come out. And so at some point I started getting scared of, well, I don't want to ruin the fun. I don't know when to stop, but I do like having fun. I like having a beer because it would get me all like, yes, I'm ready to go. I even, I mean, even when we had our work retreats, I was so excited. I was ready. I was like, man, when are we gonna play beer pong? Because I'm ready to fucking go. So I'm gonna be looping this a lot out, Ian. But I love playing beer games, flip cup, beer pong, and you remember, Ian, we played into Cage at that one retreat, and you guys messed me up because you guys were really getting at me.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you, assholes. But you guys really went at me during that time, and
Everybody,
everybody,
everybody
everybody
did.
did.
Oh my God, Eddie. Let me interject here real
Go
quick.
for it.
First off, I was the bartender. So, like I said in the previous conversation, where I got one technician so drunk that he fell asleep with his hand in the sink. So he was leaning on the sink, just like flamingo legs, just all stiff-legged, just laying there with the water running, hitting his fingers. Because I guess that was his calming mechanism to not throw up because the room was spinning, all that stuff. He was there for a good few hours. So his hand was already getting water warped. It was gross, but yeah, so there was that. Same thing here with Gabe, is I was heavy pouring all of these drinks, and it did not take long because everybody was like, all right, Gabe, is it? He reached a point where he just was like, son of, please. He was like, he was begging at that point, but poor guy.
Well, I mean, and that brings me back. Like I remember the reason. Well, okay, here's the thing. Going back to that, my Vegas experience with Eddie, I can't say that was predestined. It was free will, right? It was the fact that I went over there and I actively decided to say, hey, I'm going to drink. This person reminds me of somebody, and I acted a fool, right? So I can't say that all that was predestined because I'm not going to take the easy way out on that. I'm going to be the, I'm going to say that was all on me. So noble of me. but at the same time, I remember when Shane, I won't say his name actually, let's bleep that out. But I remember when our buddy, he was the bartender, like Ian, and he was heavy pouring. And that guy, I asked for a Jack and Coke. It was like 80% Jack, 20% Coke.
That's how you make
Oh
them.
yeah. And so
That sounds about
I just
right,
remember
knowing that
taking a walk.
person.
I walked away and I went looking outside at the nice view that we had in our Vegas suite. And then I see that person coming towards me that I was like sort of infatuated with because they reminded me of my ex. Everything else, I just blacked out at that point. I don't remember anything after that except for waking up on the toilet and I was just like shirt off and I'm like, what the hell happened to me? I had scratches on my back and I was like, how the hell did I end up with these scratches on my back? I didn't realize that until I went to the pool to go hang out. And I was wondering where the hell everybody was at because everybody left early and I was just like, shit. But I would say thank you guys for not using the bathroom while I was there. I mean, maybe you guys did, but I wouldn't know. But but
Yeah.
it was all free will. It was all my doing. It was something that I put myself through. And then once Eddie gave me that talking to, I remember I was like, well, maybe I should leave. Maybe I should go take the train or something. I remember talking to my buddy on the phone that I worked with at Starbucks. I was like, he's like, hey man, yeah, there's a train that leaves like probably in the next like 30 or so minutes if you want to try and catch that. I don't know if it was Eddie or his brother, but someone was like, yeah, just stay, man. You know, it's like, and I ended up just staying, and I was out for the whole day with them. I think it was another day that we were there, but I just felt awful, you know, ashamed, embarrassed, and what's funny is it wasn't the last time. You know, I didn't learn my lesson. I learned my lesson with Eddie, but I didn't learn my lesson overall, of, like not how to embarrass myself. I mean, I've had a lot more of those after that. But lately, now, I mean, now that I'm a parent, I don't do that anymore. I don't even drink anymore, but a lot of that has to do with my fatty liver. But yeah, I mean, I just don't drink. I don't do anything else. I should be exercising, but that'll come soon.
Should
Yeah, I
be.
should be.
I'll keep bugging you
Yeah.
about it.
But yeah, no, I just thought I'd bring that up, Eddie, and I'm glad you shared that because for me, a little part of me was thinking, I'm like, it'd be kind of funny to say that he forgot. But then I also kind of know too when you said like there, you know, it you shouldn't forget. And I never really looked at it that way, you know, because like you're saying, it felt a little vindictive then, but I deserved it. But at the same time, it does have a powerful sort of meaning behind it because it's like, yeah, like I'm not gonna forget this because of how much it hurt me. So don't do that to me again. At least you set some boundaries, right?
Yeah, and kind of going back to what I said and kind of what you mentioned again is it's that idea of like I think back when I was younger it was vindictive and it was very much like if you screw me over I'm like going to come for you essentially. But now it's more just like I want you to learn from it. I want myself to learn from that because the hope is that we grow from it and we learn from that experience so that we can know how to avoid it or know how to handle it if it happens again. Kind of going back to that specific story. Yeah, I just and the thing is I know everyone could tell like you were felt a lot of shame, especially because like we in detail told you all the things that you did and I'm sure that like how would you not be like, "Oh, crap?" Because for me, I think I would be concerned if you didn't feel a sense of shame to be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do that again." And I think for us, it was more a matter of like, "All right, man, like we get it. You messed up. Like we still want you to be here. Just don't do that again, or like don't be an a-hole." Um,
Yeah.
and
Don't take all
so
the attention. Yeah.
right, and I think the reason why we were all saying to stay, it's because like, well, like that was the first time where I feel like it had gone overboard. Like there were things leading up, like other experiences in the past where we were kind of like, rolling our eyes or whatever. But I think that got to a point where it's like, all right, that went way overboard and we're not going to allow that. So I think because we saw like genuine remorse and genuine, like, shame, we were just like, hey, man, we get it. Like you messed up. And again, instead of like holding that over you, there is that mindset of, well, just learn from it. And I think it should
Yeah.
go both ways, right? Where again, like, I'm here, I am going to be using like a religious speak, but sometimes you have to forgive yourself but you shouldn't forget that because you got to learn from that.
Like that. Well said. I'm glad you brought that up, Eddie.
No, actually, yeah, you definitely shared parts of it, but now I know, some of the specifics behind it. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah. So I can definitely see Eddie's side as well, because now there's a much clearer picture of it
Yeah.
all. So I already knew about this story, Eddie, but I only knew Gabe's side. And I even told Gabe too. I'm like, I'm curious to see if he brings it up. That's why he was so curious. Like, if it's like, oh no, I don't have anything to think about. He's like, so you did forget. Obviously you didn't. And it's good. I'm glad, because honestly, I mean, just people need to be held accountable for a lot of that stuff. But it could even go even further than just like having a bad, drunk thing. It could be, you know, relatives, friends that take a large amount of money from other family members too. And they continue to do that. And then that family member dies. And they're still going after more of the money. The I forgive part is something that I'm really trying to work on and I cannot get past. So that's on me. But, and that's been what, shoot, almost 10 years. So I'm a work in progress. So I'm a bad person to ask, because it's like, I'm still working on the forgiveness part, because there's little things, but some of the things that I deal with is for me at least is much bigger. So I'm a work in progress.
What we can do is try and learn.
Well, I mean, to
Absolutely.
that, I would say, I guess my question to you all, I feel like I know my answer, but do you think it's possible to forgive someone and not have a relationship with them?
Yeah.
Well, the answer would be yes, but you would have to be able to get in contact with that person potentially to at least verbally say the words. But I guess at the end of the day, you could just go, you know what? In my head, it's out of there. And that's it.
And that's why I asked the question, because again, for me, I feel like I've been in that situation where I've forgiven someone for what they did, but
Mm.
I don't care to have a relationship with them, not because it just, I'm at a different point in my life now where it's like, hey, you know what? Like, what
Yeah.
happened then? It's unfortunate, but my life is better off now. I feel like you're doing okay as well. So we'll let bygones be bygones and just say it was kind of fun while it lasted, but I'm just, maybe this isn't meant to go any further than what it was.
Yeah. I think that happens a lot with like the whole boyfriend, girlfriend,
Right.
ex situation, right? Where it's just like, yeah, I forgive what happened, but yeah, we really shouldn't talk anymore. And then you just don't have any conversations with them. With my last relationship, the one Eddie you were mentioning was, I mean, the way we called that off, I just cut all communication off. I didn't talk to them afterwards, so I never even had a chance really to say anything afterwards. Like, oh, I forgive you for what happened, or she could say the same thing to me, I guess. And then from there, it's just like, all right, cool, well, bye. Never, I never see you again. Or if I do, it's just gonna be in passing of like, oh, hi, that's it. But yeah, I never got that closure necessarily, except for the night that I just said I don't want to see you again. That was it. So it's kind of hard. Yeah, I guess you can say, yeah, I forgive you, and then just like never talk to that person ever again.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, I know you have a truth that you would like to get into.
All right. Mine's a little bit different. Mine's like, okay, you're living your 30s and into your 40s. You've had memories, you've had experiences, hopefully. Your 50s and your 60s. So, starting to feel your age now, and you're in your 70s. And it's like it's starting to creep up. And then hopefully you make it to your 80s, and we'll just say you do. And then you could get a terminal illness and you're on your deathbed. At that point, since we've been talking about destinies and whatnot, all you want to do is live. And, obviously by that point it's too late. And your predetermined destiny is thrown out the window because you want to live. And so going back to the bucket list, going back to all that stuff where we talked about just being able to get those things done in life, and you hope that you can. But I think, like, we go back to our destinies, they constantly change and they'll evolve. And hopefully at that point, obviously because we're doing the harsh truths here, is that person that feels that way on their deathbed, where they're just like, I have to go back. That's what I don't want to be. At that point, if you have a terminal illness, I want to be able to be there going like, man, you know what? And just like you're reminiscing about some of the good old times, and everybody's like happy, you're content, you just know. Because I guess if you're going to have to go, I guess slow, instead of just, doing the quick, boom, that's it. At least you want to be in a happier place and just experience peace, or as Gabe calls it, nirvana. And so that's the harsh truth, is all you want to do at that point is live, and you've missed the boat. I think that was probably more of a statement than it was a topic. Thank you, Gabe, for saying, no, that's good. You should probably just put that in there.
That is great, because I mean, I have something to share with that too. I've been thinking
Oh, thank God for saving me. Appreciate
thinking
that.
a lot about that, and because I mean, my fascination with death is it's
know.
unhealthy.
Oh, sorry.
Right? Yeah, it's like I think about it all the time. I'm always thinking about the idea of nothingness, the idea of me not being here, the idea of how am I going to die? Am I going to be in a good situation?
Eddie, he's becoming the emo people from South Park. The whole flipping the hair.
Cut my hair though.
I mean, when he had, you missed it. Before he got this haircut, he had the flowing hair. And I'm like, Gabe, that's all you got to do.
I
is
remember
just,
seeing
flick your head.
Again, I've listened to and watched your podcast, and I was going to make the comment earlier, like, hey man, I like your haircut. It looks nice. Because yes,
Thanks,
it was really long, longer than I've ever seen it in the past.
I've never grown it out that long before. And yeah, I just wanted to say that I've done it and I did it, and I'm happy I cut it because now I can actually feel the air on my neck, and that shit was heavy.
Oh.
Yeah, whenever I would have to shower, that thing was just like slapping my back, like,
We won't go there.
Oh, we did. But
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah. Oh, I don't like how you
Oh, hey, Eddie, this is another funny thing too, hopefully, is I go, when he had his hair and he had like, I don't know, he had like this, like, I don't know, this very thick sweater on, almost looked like he was wearing like a scarf almost. And I'm like, oh my God, right now you look like Rachel Ray's husband. And he's like, who Rachel Ray is. And maybe as like you're flipping through the channels around like, 2 or 3 o'clock, they would be cooking together. And so he went and was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so he Googled it and looked at him and went, huh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yes, answer.
Crap. Oh. But
I'm going to look it up right now. I'm going to look up Rachel
Oh,
Ray's husband.
got it. Sorry, I thought you were getting it.
oh yeah.
Like, oh, it's all good.
So when he looked it up and we had it on the screen and he was looking at it, that was when he was just like, huh. Like even like the face, like the gray in the facial hair and his beard, and even like the streaks in his hair and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, a little bit.
He's a white dude though, right?
No, I think he's Italian. No, I think he's Italian. I think I could be 100%.
I remember
wrong.
like even when I worked at Starbucks, there was a guy who said I looked like Joel from The Last of Us. Pedro Pascal played him in the show, but I looked like the character.
You
Well,
wish.
I looked like the character in the game, is what he said. And I told my wife that.
Yeah.
My wife's like, no. But he was like a white dude too, and I'm just like, why are you guys saying I look like these white guys? Like, there's no way in hell I look like these guys, and I don't know what you guys are thinking, but yeah. I mean, that's more. I would say I look like that guy a little bit more so than that Joel guy.
I get this all the time. People think I look like The Rock. I'm like, guys, he's like 6'4". I'm like 6'3". So There's
You're like,
clearly
he
a
doesn't wear
difference here.
glasses, guys. Come on.
Well, he's starting to. We are
We are
starting
starting
to.
to.
So
Jeez. I'm happy for
no,
you.
he's it's a curse, but I'm
The
working
most
on it.
I've gotten is I look like George Lopez, and I remember one of my buddies
You do now.
at work said that while I was working at Starbucks, and this is when I had barely gotten out of my first relationship with my ex, and I was flirting with somebody, and he's like, "No, you kind of remind me of a George Lopez." I'm like, "Thanks, man." Out of all the people you're gonna say I fucking look like, I was like, I never saw her again.
You're
Yeah,
instantly in the friend
yeah, like,
zone
you're
right there.
funny. Yeah,
It's like,
like,
oh, you're
man, okay,
funny. You're gonna be so
cool.
funny. We're gonna be such great friends. You're like, shut
Shut down.
down. All right. It's like putting the sweats on and just tying the knots. Nothing's
Happens a
happening.
lot, man. It happens a lot. That's why I went to online dating. Yeah.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Bumble?
No, plenty of fish, man. Plenty of fish.
Yeah. Was it Grinder?
You
That's
know
what it
what's
was.
funny is we've talked about this, but a lot of that stuff wasn't out yet, and not that I wish it was. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, it was a very innocent kind of playing field. Like, in order to like, you would have to probably go to Plenty of Fish or OK Cupid if you wanted something other than dating, because otherwise, the real serious ones were going to like eHarmony and other
Or like
platforms
Match.
where you have to pay. Yeah, and you'd have to pay, right, to be able to find somebody that
Hey,
matches you.
hey,
Yeah.
you're forgetting about the
What?
best one.
Farmers only. There's also
Farmersonly.com.
Jewish couples, black couples only. I think like they have all that
Let's not forget about Christian
Christian
Mingle.
mingle. You know, I don't
Yeah.
understand that because it's so easy to meet somebody who's Christian. You just go to church and like everybody's mingling there.
Well, no, this is different. We don't do church anymore. We can just watch a Zoom call and just, praise, the Heavenly Father that way. And then of course meet them on the Christian Mingle app, and then eventually at some point, months, weeks later, meet. Or just go to church like you said. But
It's kind of
then you have to get up,
it's such a commitment, I'm sure,
interact.
being in a Christian relationship, and I'm sure that's what my dad would have wanted me to get into, is meet a nice Christian girl and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, and at the same time, it's almost so much easier though, right? Because there a lot of it's kind of easy. Everybody kind of understands their role and what they do. So I kind of like I can understand that in some ways, but it's not for me. And I'm not religious. I can't fake to be religious. I just can't deal with the hypocrisy in Christianity, to be honest. But what else? So moving on, because I know we're sorry, Eddie. I know it's already been like almost 2 hours. We're almost done. I promise. So after all those harsh truths, unless
I'm
anybody had
having
anything else
fun.
they want to
So
add,
that's good.
good, good. I know these questions could be a little daunting sometimes and a little on the darker side, and I just kind of wanted to end this a little bit on a good note. So all we can do is just do our best, right? And Yoda. Yoda says, do or do not. There is no try. And to me, what that means, and to me, I mean, I used to believe in that for a minute, but then now I'm like, well, no, all you can do is try, right? Like we try and we fail. We try and we fail. So it's just the idea of you can only do or do not. But then I started thinking too, I'm like, well, when we do, we already tried to do and then we failed that. So then we did not do it. I did not. I didn't do it. What was that movie from the room? I didn't. I did not. I, it's such a confusing phrase, and I used to man, Yoda knows everything, but I'm like, no, man, all I do is try. I can't even do anymore. I just it always becomes a I did not. In the workplace, you come up with a great idea, and you're just like, hey, I have this business proposal. I think that we can benefit, and be very efficient if we do it this way. And they're like, nope, pass it on you. And you're like, well, at least I tried. And then it takes the other person that finally comes in, a new hire they brought in. I think we should do it this way, which is everything probably that I said. And like, that's a fantastic idea. This is why we hired you. And I'm just like, well, shit, that's pretty much what I said. But yeah, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Ian, did you have anything?
Well, it depends on the level of your confidence that you're going into when you're trying. So, are you just going in without any looking into anything, any preparation, any just research, any of that stuff? Or are you just going, all right, what's going on? Oh, you want me to solve that problem with no prior experience? All right, I guess I'm just going to figure it out. You could go in there like, oh, well, I don't really want to do it, but I'll give it a try. Low confidence. So you're destined to fail. But if you actually go into it going, okay, I'm going to take this serious. I'm going to be 100% committed to do the best that I can to create the best outcome. So you dive into it and you just start problem solving right when you get there, and you start looking around on just being aware of your surroundings, and then just kind of figure out how things are moving and going and flowing, and then just execute and then go from there. You kind of figure it out. You hope to, but you'll have a better chance of success than simply just going into it and just standing there going, what do I do next? Oh, well, at least I tried. So it's up to you, really. How much effort you put in is what you're going to get out. So try harder.
True. And that's why all we can do is try. Eddie, I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that. If you don't, that's totally fine.
Yeah, okay.
Give 'em a
The only thing
chance.
that I would say to that is, I would say, kind of agree with both of you. I think the action of trying something is always, you kind of have to do it, right? So I think the older that I've gotten, the more that I question that piece of advice that he gives Luke. But I do agree with Ian in that I think the way that you approach it does matter. Again, for example, I couldn't just try moving to North Carolina. I had to do it, right? And that was a planning process. I did all of these things with intentionality. And now that I'm here, it's like, okay, well, like I did it. So I can say, I've tried living here. I have lived here. I've done this thing. Now kind of what's the next step? So yeah, I would say I agree with both of you a little bit. I think there is a lot of power with that intent, like the intentionality though, of how you're approaching it.
Just to, I mean, on the Yoda topic too, I mean, with Luke, they always said that he was going to be the one to bring down, the Empire and bring balance to the Force, right? But it ended up being him. It ended up being, well, it kind of was him, but then they created a new Republic. And there was also, even before that, there was his father, Anakin, that was ultimately became the antagonist. And so that whole movie is just all about, destiny and everything being predestined, right? Because you had this whole like idea of like, oh, there will be somebody to bring balance to the Force. So another argument for there being destiny. All right, guys. It's not a fixed story. I mean, there's two stories that sound very similar. There's Dune and then there's Star Wars. All right. It's just minus the spices and more Christian ideology. So, next question. Eddie, this one's for you, man. So, what is one thing that you do that everyone should do to, I guess, be a better person and all this other stuff?
I don't know if it makes me a better person, but like, well, I would say in having a dog, I'm forced to like go out every day, go for a walk for like anywhere from about 30 minutes to an hour. And I think there's a lot of value to doing that, just to have dedicated time. In this case, like to myself, whether it's wanting to listen to a podcast, whether it's listening to music, sometimes it's just kind of a matter of just being in my own head about like processing what I plan to do throughout the day or what I did throughout the day. So I think having those moments of like being outside is really important. I don't think like having a desk job, it's so easy to just not do that. So I would recommend, again, as the kids say, go touch grass, go live life in that
It's
regard.
funny that like dogs kind of do that to you, where even like more so than kids, like dogs for one, like you become a little more empathetic,
Yeah.
and even more so than when you have kids. So kids, you're like, oh, see, you did that, and that was going to happen. It's like, but with dogs, just like, oh man, that happened to you. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Come here, let me pet you. Come up on top of the, and it's just a different way of thinking with animals. It's a whole different kind of love and responsibility that you have with them.
In regards to maybe like a mindset that
Mhm.
I often tell my students, and I guess something that I would want to share is like know your worth. I genuinely mean that. I think I've said this before and I'll say it again of like I think people underestimate their potential and what they can and can't do. And the only way to do it is to try to actually, go with the intention of wanting to do something. Like I constantly tell my students, you should reach out to this school and like ask them about like scholarships, or you should try this. The worst answer you're going to get is no. But what if you hear something different? And I say that because, again, as I've shared about my story in the past, I am who I am as a result of just asking questions and, in some ways, seeking, I guess, permission, or at the very least, like making my presence known to ultimately do something. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that I believed in myself and I believed in what I was doing and I believed in like the good that I wanted to do. So yeah, know your worth and ask questions.
With that,
Well
yeah.
said.
And with that being
Well
said,
said.
too, with that, do you have like any sort of mantra that you repeat to yourself throughout the day?
Oh, I woke up today. Okay.
I used to, there was somebody that always I would ask every time he would come in, he'd be like, hey man, how you doing? He's like, best day of my life. All the time. Every time that you would ask him, best day of my life. And I found out he was a pastor, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay.
in in all seriousness, I would say probably the mantra again, like kind of said it earlier, of like I have
Mhm.
meaning if you find it in yourself, and
Yeah.
I think us as people, we can do a lot of good more than I think we give ourselves credit for. So yeah, just do good in the world, like legitimately make people feel good, let people know that there's a reason for them being here, and build community. And like I know it sounds cheesy, but I believe that.
A really good one. I like that.
Absolutely.
And what about your daily routine? What's that look like? What do you do like before you go to work?
It's really not that exciting. Like I every once in a while will like try to do like a workout in the morning, whether it's like some sort of yoga, whether that's some sort of like weightlifting. Like I said, I walk my dog pretty much every day. So that's helpful. That's at least some bit of exercise. But most of what I'm doing, I'll be honest, like a lot of it seems like routine where it's just I go to, wake up, walk the dog, get ready for work, go to work, come back, after work, maybe grade a little bit. Just because, like I said, if you know anything about teaching, it's not a 40-hour job; it's more. And then on the weekends, probably do a little bit of that, a little bit more of grading. But my wife and I, we always want to like, especially because we moved to North Carolina recently. We're always trying to do like one new thing, whether that be like go to a new place, go to a new restaurant, check out like a new space, check out a new park. And we've been pretty good about that. I think like having us move across the country, it's afforded us to be able to explore new things in new areas. And so again, this kind of goes back to like that idea of like trying. You're never going to know if you like something or not if you don't actually go and do it or try it. So with that being said, I would say routine during the week is very like I got to go to work, and after work I have dinner, blah, blah blah. But I would say we try to make a habit of like trying something new every weekend, and I think that's helpful just to keep things interesting and keep things new. Especially like one thing that we've kind of noticed here in North Carolina, and I don't know if it's kind of a thing in the South. Again, no dig on people in the South, but it seems like they are very kind of in their ways. And I think having grown up in Southern California, where you are exposed to so many different types of cultures, beliefs, food, people, and just because there's like an overabundance of things to do, we've kind of brought that mindset here of like, well, let's go try something new, let's go do something. So yeah, I guess that's a mantra. Try something new.
That's fun. That's kind of like what my wife and I are doing right now. Because now that we're in the city that we're in, she has a page dedicated to it. So we just try, a bunch of different food places and a bunch of different events, especially since now the holidays are coming up. It's kind of fun to just get out and just do those various different events and activities that they have around the city.
I was going to say, Eddie, have you checked out any barbecue places yet? I know that might sound silly.
So here's the thing. I lived in Texas. So because of that, my barbecue experience in Texas has like nothing's been able to match it. And again, don't hate me, North Carolina, but
Oh, no, no.
but
Ooh.
I I think it's very hard to eat North Carolina barbecue after I've had Texas barbecue. And especially because like the sauce is different. So I have tried North Carolina barbecue. It was all right.
Just not your
No,
favorite.
Texas barbecue is
Okay.
unmatched. Like Texas barbecue is legit. I will die on that hill. Like I have not had better barbecue than Texas barbecue up to this point
Okay.
yet, right? But it'll be hard to beat. So, but I will say again, the one thing I don't know if there's anything that's been like specific to North Carolina that that I've had that it's like, oh, this is amazing, or this is like the thing here. Like for example, I think California's bread and butter is like In and Out, right? Like an In and Out burger. I haven't really had anything like
Yeah.
that here. Or like the abundance of Asian food
Ex-
that's in Southern California. Again, we finally were able to try like a Korean barbecue place that's in High Point, which not too far from where we live. And that place was really good, like on par with like Mr. Barbecue in Fullerton, if y'all have ever been there. But
oh, yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about right there in downtown Fullerton. Is
it's
that
not
where it's at?
downtown. It's down the street from Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, never mind. Maybe a wrong spot then. But I mean, you forgot Mexican food too. I mean,
I
Mexican food
again,
here is
well,
we don't
yeah,
eat
but I
Mexican food.
mean,
Yeah, because your mom makes Mexican food.
yeah,
Really good Mexican food too.
thank you. But I would say I think that the thing for both, my wife and I, both of us, coming from Mexican backgrounds, it's always hard to go like to a Mexican restaurant because we're like always very judgy of like how is this compared to our mom's food, and nothing can ever beat mom's food.
Makes
So
sense.
yeah,
Okay.
but birria tacos are good, and I've had a few here that are pretty good. But yeah, so sorry, I went on a tangent regarding your barbecue. So I have had North Carolina barbecue. It's all right compared to Texas barbecue. Sorry.
Dang.
Well, you heard it here
Yeah.
first,
Should have
folks.
waited until you left North Carolina to say that.
So prove me wrong.
But last question of the day. All right. Eddie, what's your favorite song right now?
It's funny that you mentioned that because, like I said, the starting line, one of my favorite bands, if probably not like top three for sure, just released an album yesterday, and they put out a song called Sense of Humor a few, like probably 2 months ago, maybe about a month ago. And it was like the first single off of that album. And I would say that right now because the whole, if you know anything about that band's like story, they had a really hard time in the music industry and were kind of on the cusp of like making it big, but like label screwed them over, not the right time, right place. And so with them coming back, they're just kind of going into it with this mindset of like, you kind of have to laugh it off and just say like, it is what it is. And all you can do is kind of move forward and laugh about those things that happened in the past because, it's kind of made you who you are today. So it's very relevant to how I kind of feel about certain things in my life that I would have thought would have panned out differently or looked differently. And I think part of growing up and part of just kind of my life experiences and just having insight into things, you start to be more appreciative of like what you do have rather than focusing on the things that you don't. And so because of that, I would say that that song very much resonated with me as a result.
Awesome. And let me guess, your favorite song of all time is also probably the starting line too, then.
No, favorite song of all
Okay.
time. will probably always be God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. It is that.
Huh.
I love that song. That is genuinely, I think, one of the most beautiful songs ever written. If you haven't heard it, like, listen to that song with headphones on and just like immerse yourself in it, because there's so many like sounds going on, so many things. But yeah, I would say God Only Knows is hands down probably one of my favorite songs. It's not my favorite song of all time.
Awesome. I mean, right, you guys, those who are listening, you heard Eddie, gotta listen to the Beach Boys. God Only Knows. And then check out the starting line as well. Let's make them popular. Let's get them to where they want it to be. So everybody, whether or not you believe in destiny, it can be a unique path filled with opportunities for growth, fulfillment, and meaning, shaped by one's choices, intentions, and actions. Rather than seeing destiny as something predetermined and unchangeable, many uplifting perspectives emphasize that individuals can play an active role in shaping their destiny by staying optimistic, fostering good intent, and pursuing what excites them most. So, with that being said, everyone, stay kind.